The city of Detroit, from beautiful downtown, which serves the Ambassador Bridge, to the abandoned train station and connecting to Jeffrey freeways. Let's see how some teenage Detroiters feel about their hometown.
I think I have a really love-hate relationship with Detroit because one thing is the weather. On the other hand, Detroit is like my city. I grew up here, so I love it. I do love Detroit. Um, it's one of my favorite places to be just because I call it home, and it's so fun to interact with the people and so many different cultures that you could learn from. Detroit is just an amazing place for that. And
Me, I love Detroit. That's where I grew up. That's my city. But I feel like Detroit gets a bad reputation. People mainly see what's bad with Detroit. But Detroit has a lot of good aspects. The people, the different type of cultures you can see, the different interactions you can get. I learned a lot from Detroit just from the different type of people that I
I
met.
love Detroit because Detroit is home. Whether I'm in Ypsilanti or in Miami, Detroit will always be home. I know a lot of people have bad opinions about Detroit, and I don't blame them. The city's not the best, but again, it's still home to me. Been here for 18 years of my life, and will always come back here no matter what because Detroit is home. It done had its good times and it had its bad times, but overall, through it all, Detroit will always be home, and I love Detroit and will always will.
growing up in Detroit was, in my dynamic, it was a struggle, but only because of outward things. It wasn't anything race related or anything. But growing up in Detroit, it taught me so many things about who I am as a person, who I am as my character. Growing up in Detroit just molded me into the person that I am, and I couldn't imagine living there.
Here you go.
How you feel about growing up in Detroit?
Hey, yeah, how do you feel about growing up in Detroit? Did you enjoy it?
All right. So, growing up in Detroit, it's been nothing but positive things for me. Like all my life, I've been there for like 18 years now. So I mean, I've never had to deal with like struggle or like crime as much. I mean, I have got robbed a couple of times, but it ain't really been nothing major. But growing up altogether, it's been nothing but good things. Like I love where I live, I love where I stay. So I mean, it's been
Just to piggyback off what she said, I've been robbed as well. So, I mean, it's kind of hard growing up in Detroit. And growing up in Detroit, I'm gonna honestly say you had to learn how to fight because everybody just wanted to bother you. Everybody wanted to pick with you. But on the good side, like I said, it's a lot of attractions growing up in Detroit. And
Like when I was younger, I grew up in a kind of like bad neighborhood, and so my dad, like, he was fortunate enough to make enough money to get us out that neighborhood and move to a nicer one. And so like I think I moved there in about '07 when I was about 10. And ever since then, like it's been good for me. I went to a good school, good high school, CT. I went second gun, Masserini.
trash.
But yeah, I like growing up in Detroit. Yeah, like you gotta be safe out there. I've been fortunate enough not to be robbed. I've never had to experience anything like that, but yeah.
I love growing up in Detroit, honestly. It's like people can nitpick and say, "Oh, the West Side is better, the East Side is this, da 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 da." My whole portion on that is I love every part of the city, from the suburbs to the slums to the ghetto, because it all just gives you character. It's all about where you come from. Like I love my city. I love what my city does. I love what we're trying to accomplish. I love Detroit as a whole. And growing up gave me some of the best memories and introduced me to some of the best people I've ever met ever in my life. So
Growing up in Detroit, it's always your good times and your bad times. But see, I have more good times than bad times, so I just love it all.
Detroit. Growing up in Detroit wasn't the worst, but it wasn't the best. And I feel like you can say that about growing up in any city, whether it was Ypsilanti, Rochester, or wherever. But growing up in Detroit, I learned that you can't trust just anybody. You have to be able to be a strong enough person to whereas what other people say won't affect you or bring you down. You got to be able to hear it, but don't hear it. And that's one of the things that I like growing up in Detroit about, because you're going to meet a lot of people that you're not going to like what they say. But having that experience helped build my character to be the person that I am today. And I feel like if I grew up somewhere else, I may not have gotten that experience.
In my opinion, there is no city that is better than my city.